All right, so now I'll be explaining the issues with the null hypothesis, and kind of the overarching problem is that research is biased, which is why errors occur. So first, there's the type 1 error, which happens when the researcher incorrectly rejects the null hypothesis. So it's possible that a researcher can conclude that their alternative hypothesis is valid when this is not the case, creating a false positive result. So this happens when there is intentional or unintentional bias within the results, signifying that there is a correlation or causation between the independent and dependent variables when this isn't the case. So for example, let's say you're a medical researcher testing your new cancer drug on patients. So in this case, your null hypothesis is that the drug does not treat the cancer patients, and the alternative hypothesis is that the drug does treat the cancer patients. So, you as a medical researcher, you really want to make a lot of money off of this drug that you've developed. So you overlook numerous variables and make biased choices, such as who you select to participate in the study. So for example, you could be selecting patients who are undergoing chemotherapy at the same time. So this would lead you to find that the cancer drug does work, meaning that the null hypothesis is shown to be false. However, if you conducted your research properly, you would have found that the drug actually has no effect and that the null hypothesis was valid all along. So then the next error that can occur is a type 2 error, which happens when the researcher falsely proves the null hypothesis when it was the alternative hypothesis that Y is dependent on X that should have been justified instead. So this happens when researchers want to preserve the status quo and don't want new conclusions to be made. So for example, let's say a government is trying to prove that burning fossil fuels contributes to climate change. Therefore, their null hypothesis is that fossil fuels do not contribute to climate change. However, this government makes a lot of money from selling fossil fuels, and they want to uphold, the ways in which their economy is succeeding. So when testing, they use invalid and biased data that signifies that fossil fuels do not contribute to climate change, therefore upholding the null hypothesis. So obviously status quo bias is present here because, they should have been able to prove that the null hypothesis is false, seeing as how, we all know that burning fossil fuels are bad for the environment.